From a broke college dropout to a multimillionaire. Today I'm going to share my full story with you. I hope that you get some inspiration out of this, and I hope this helps you in your life and in the future, and kind of looking from my lens and my perspective. Where I want to start out this video here today is we're going to go all the way back to understand how I went from, where I started at, in the financial game of a broke college kid, right, to multimillionaire. If we go all the way back to my childhood. So my dad, he started a small pool cleaning business, essentially, when I was about, I would say, 5 or 6 years old. Now, I started working in that business when I was probably about, I would say, 8 years old or so. And so when other kids would their college break would come, I would go work with my dad. Now, we worked in Phoenix, Arizona. A few things that really taught me that have kind of carried me to this day. One is work ethic. I also learned that was not what I wanted to do. I started to view life as like, man, there's got to be something better out there than this. That also taught me that. Also, we worked mainly in retirement communities. Pretty much everybody was 55 and up. And most of these folks, most of my dad's customers were retired, right? And so I also got to view life since I was a child and getting to see all these older folks as I got to view like life as, this thing that happens, right? And you eventually die, and you want to position your life as well as you can possibly position it throughout your life, right? And so that also kind of always stuck with me as like seeing all those older folks, and some of our customers ended up passing away over time and those sorts of things, right? Now, in regards to school, I was not the best student. That doesn't mean I was a bad student. I just, to be quite frank, I came up in the Arizona public school system, not a very good, impressive thing, just to be quite honest with you guys, especially back in those days. And, I most of the time when teachers would talk, I'd just be daydreaming and stuff like that, not even really paying attention. So I was not the great student in high school, right? Which, leads me to kind of football. I played tackle football for 5 years. And the reason I got into tackle football is I wanted to play in the NFL. And I had these dreams of being an NFL player someday. Like, oh man, I'm going to, I used to watch NFL Network all the time and play Madden and just like dream about being an NFL player and how awesome that would be. And I wasn't that damn good at football. It was very depressing. Then, it's senior year of high school, right? Football season ends. I was able to get involved in track because I had my best friend. His name was Giorgio, great friend of mine, back in those days. And he was spectacular, a track athlete. He was really good at football too. And he was a very close friend of mine. And so he got me into track. And who would have known, like, that ended up coming in clutch, because I don't know where I was going with my life, just to be quite honest, at that particular time. And the reason being is I wasn't good at school. My grades weren't good. I never really put an effort towards school. I'd put in a crazy amount of effort to football. That didn't work out. Right? 5 years kind of almost down the drain. And what am I going to do? And so I signed up for college classes, and I had to pay for it out of pocket, which it wasn't that expensive. Community college is relatively cheap compared to university, actually really cheap compared to university. At least it was in Arizona if you're an in-state student. So I went ahead, signed up for the classes. I was working at that time Einstein Bagels, the first job my brother got me, which I was making like $7.50 an hour, taking orders and then cleaning dishes in the back all afternoon and whatnot. I'd come home, my shirt would be drenched. It was like crazy. But, I remember there was a moment after that, though. It was kind of like I was going to, okay, maybe this is something I'm going to do. But I remember there was a moment where my friend there, he won the state championship. And then the girlfriend I was dating at that particular time, she won the state championship. They were both the fastest in their particular events. One was a 200 meter, the other was a 400 meter. And I remember being up in the stands. And I remember feeling so happy for them and just feeling I was like one of the craziest bittersweet moments I ever had in my life. I don't think I've ever had that. Factually, I've never had that emotion. There's certain emotions you can feel in life. You'll never feel that emotion again, or maybe you feel it again, but it's very low probability. This was the only time I ever felt this like bittersweet emotion like go over me, where I was so happy for these people that were close to me at the particular time, having the success, the things we talked about, they did it, they achieved it. And then I felt so low about myself. And I just remember just feeling like just incredibly low with me personally, and so disappointed. That leads me to college, right? Which the main reason I really even started taking college classes is to run track, because I was like, this is kind of fun. Like, I kind of like this. And I was like, this might be actually something I could be successful at, which I needed a win at that time. When you put in so much work towards something and it doesn't work out and you got low confidence, you need a win. And so track was that opportunity. I noticed there was a huge change in me. I was suddenly paying attention in class, like something I never did in high school or middle school. I was suddenly cared. And my gosh, my focus level, especially when it came to anything business related or money related, accounting, business management, marketing, anything like that, it was off the charts. Started taking some psychology courses, and like all of a sudden, what am I doing? I'm sitting at the front of class. I'm paying the most attention. I would never even take notes. Everybody else in college, they all take notes. Nowadays, people probably do it on their computer or whatever, right? Everybody would always take notes. Never took notes. I would just sit there and just listen to the professor lecture about whatever it is, and I would just retain everything that they were essentially saying. I never needed to take notes, and my grades were phenomenal. Suddenly, I went from this, do the least to get by to like this amazing student. And all of a sudden I'm like A's and B's, and all of a sudden I'm like, how am I like an A-B student now? And so I started to really understand, this business thing, like money related stuff, like this is what I'm really into. Like I'm pretty passionate about this. And simultaneously, I also wanted to learn about, like how to make your money into money, because, I had a bank account. I was starting to make some money from my job. I had a little bit of excess money, and I'm like, I knew there was a concept of like growing your money into money, but I'm like, how do I do that? And so that's when I started kind of looking at real estate, and I was like, this is too crazy. No one's going to give me a loan. Like, real estate's not practical. So then I came across the stock market until I found Warren Buffett on YouTube. YouTube came out and started getting popular around 2006, 2007. And so by the time I was in college, I was using YouTube a lot back then for just random stuff. I'd watch track videos, I'd watch Usain Bolt training, and then I was able to find all these Warren Buffett videos. And oh my gosh, the way he explained the market. He took the stock market from me, from this thing of like, this is this big game of gambling and, trading stocks and trying to get in and out, to understanding you're investing. You're buying an actual business. When you go buy a share of Google stock, right? You're buying actual ownership, part ownership of Google Corporation, right? If you go buy a share of Home Depot, you are now part owner of Home Depot. And so I ended up, setting up a Fidelity account, and I was able to set that up because I was working now at Walgreens. I got a job at Walgreens. I got bumped to like $8.25 an hour to work in the photo department at Walgreens, which was a big come up. 75 cents an hour extra, baby, let's go. And they had a stock ownership plan where when you work for Walgreens back in those days, they would give you, I think it was 15% off the actual share price of Walgreens as long as you held for at least 3 to 6 months, right? So that's how I ended up setting up a Fidelity account way back in the day. So suddenly I'm having success in track. Also, I'm starting to have success in school, right? College, like my grades are good now, like, which is crazy to me. Meanwhile, I'm starting this investing journey, which was extremely exciting for me, of like, wow, I'm going to start becoming part owner of actual companies, right? And just had all that going on simultaneously. And it was definitely a magical feeling at that time, where it was like, I was in such a dark place, and like the light started to shine a little bit about like, here's where we're going, right? And not successful at football, not successful at school. I felt like I just wasn't successful at anything, and suddenly the sun's coming out and I'm successful at these different things. And even though it was just starting points, it was massive for my confidence at that point in time, right? At that moment, I was faced with like, what am I going to do now? Because I was, after that next semester in junior year, I was going to basically have all my credits where community college didn't make any sense. So it was kind of like, okay, am I going to go university? Now I was cold emailed a couple top business schools in the United States of America. And basically I was trying to finagle my way into getting a scholarship through track, because basically a lot of the top business schools in the United States, they had track programs, a lot of them, but their track athletes are not very good, So I basically came up with this thought process of like, if I could get them to give me a scholarship for track because I was actually good enough to be like probably the best sprinter on the team, or at least one of the best sprinters on the team for them, then I could get that super expensive business school paid for, right? So I was like, oh man, this is good. And so I shared with them my grades and kind of what was going on there. And I had a couple colleges that were really interested, but the problem was they didn't really give out track scholarships like that for those schools. So I would have had to walk on. So I could have got into those top business schools because of my grades and also the connection with the track program. So I would have been able to like get it all done, but I would have had to come out of pocket. So that wasn't going to work. So then I was like, well, I'm going to stay in state, go to ASU, something like that, right? Very, very expensive. I would have had to go massively in debt, obviously, to make something like that happen, right? $8.25 an hour is not getting you a college education. I'm sorry, that's just not happening with how expensive university is. So I applied one night, late night. I applied at Walmart to become a manager at Walmart. I applied Trader Joe's, and I applied at a company named Quick Trip. And so I ended up going for my interview. I knocked it out of the ballpark. And very shortly after, I got the job offer. And I took that job offer and never looked back. I worked at Quick Trip maybe 3-4 months, and they put me on a program called ERP, which is essentially I got another bump in pay. And now I was going to different stores and working at different stores and working with different people and things like that. And then an opportunity opened up. Now, this time I moved out of my parents' house, living in an apartment, right? Then an opportunity emerged for a very high volume store, very close to me. And I went to that store. And that was the store they moved me to. And that bumped me. Then I started, because that store bonused really well, I started making like $50,000 plus if you were to annualize it over a year, right? And really was able to start investing heavily now at this point in time. Oh man, I would eat so cheap. I would eat like ramen, noodles, which back then was like 10 cents, right? I would eat Totino's pizzas. Was able to find some really good investment opportunities at that particular time. Monster Beverage, the Monster Beverage investment that made me so much money and gave me so much confidence in the market, that doesn't happen if I didn't work at Quick Trip. When you work overnights, essentially, you start around 10 o'clock at night, and then you get off around 7. Well, landscapers do what my dad and I used to do. They wake up very early in Arizona, 4 a.m., 5 a.m. So these guys come in 4 a.m., 5 a.m. What are they buying? Monster. They're grabbing them 2 at a time. We had a deal, I think back then it was 2 for $3.33 or 2 for $3.50. They're buying these monsters left and right. So that's what actually led me to look into Monster, and I would see the sales that we were doing on a daily basis or on a weekly basis at my particular store. I'm like, oh my gosh. And then when I was on ERP, I got to see, like, it wasn't just it was that store, it was everywhere. Cabela's came about because guess what? I lived right across from Cabela's. And I would go walk that store, and I was just always very impressed. I also noticed their numbers had kind of troughed, and they were starting to head back up. I listened to conference calls. They were talking about opening more stores. I would do the math and kind of, okay, a store does this, about this much volume. So that means their revenue is going to go up about this much, right? And the Cabela's investment happened in that apartment as well. And that was, at that particular time, that was probably the biggest money maker. It made so much money off Cabela's. It was phenomenal. Phenomenal return, right? That leads me to kind of that stage. Now, meanwhile, at Quick Trip, my managers know I want to rise the ranks, right? I want to get to the next thing. And so I end up getting on the promotion list. And meanwhile, I'm getting in a serious relationship at this point in time. My girlfriend, which once again is now my wife, she moved in with me. And so, I'm in a serious relationship. I said, I want to try to help the company expand out in the Carolinas. I think I'll get promoted a lot faster. I think I can move up the ranks. And I looked into Charlotte, and I was like, I don't mind living there. And I said, I can understand maybe if you don't want to come, what do you think about that? And she was on board, right? Time was passing, and I was kind of getting impatient. And you got to understand, when you're like in your early 20s, you're like 20, 21, 22 years old, like, you're kind of like want things to happen. And everything seems like it takes so long sometimes. And so I was actually like, this probably isn't going to happen. So my girlfriend and I at the time, we were even looking at like homes. Maybe we should buy a home. We were looking in the Avondale area, Goodyear, because I'm like, maybe we'll just stay out here in Arizona. And then I got the call. he said, it's time. You're going to be going out to Charlotte. And I just remember just being like, because I at that time, I was kind of like giving up on hope on the situation. I was like, maybe they don't want me out there, because I can't speak to Quick Trip nowadays, but back then, they were very selective about who they sent out. They only want to send the best of the best, because you got to understand, when you're expanding to a new division like that, you need the best people that are the most like company people that understand everything and are the hardest workers, because they're going to set the example for all the new workers who don't really understand the culture of that company, who don't do those things, right? And so, yeah. And he's like, we're looking at, I think it was 2 months from now. And I'm like, let's do it. So we made the trip, got pulled over in Amarillo, Texas. We had a bunch of stuff in the back of my wife's Chevy Silverado. And at that time now, I was driving a 350Z. My car was loaded with stuff. I think they thought we were transporting some stuff. Let's just put it that way. And I got pulled over Amarillo, Texas. I was going through so much stress back in those days. I was grinding my teeth at night. Meanwhile, I'm having a ton of success in the market. I'm getting great returns. It's a good time in the market overall. And then I'm just knocking out of the ballpark with stock after stock after stock, right? And meanwhile, now my girlfriend, now my fiance actually, we weren't married yet, but we were engaged. She got pregnant. And so it was kind of like a situation where I was like, I should just focus full time on investing. And I think I kind of got a little burnt out of Quick Trip too. And so when my first son was born, I left the company. And at that time, I was just kind of like focused on investing, and I took a full year plus off, right? And that was great, by the way, because the first baby I probably ever held in my life was my own baby, which is kind of crazy to think about, right? But, firstborn son, it was a magical time in my life. I'm leaving Quick Trip, which I was kind of burnt out on. Simultaneously, my son is born, one of the most emotional things ever. Just what a moment, man. So next thing you know, some things aren't working out for me. Wynn Resorts, I was heavily invested in that company. I knew they had bright days ahead, but they were going through a very tough time in Macau. The stock just kept dropping. Next thing you know, I was faced with some margin call situations. It got ugly. And next thing you know, I'm doing these like earnings trades, and I'm going, I never did any of this crap. Earnings trades and messing around with margin, this was not the stuff that made me successful. This was not the stuff that got me to nearly $200,000 in my portfolio before I was 25. This stuff, and it almost ended me. It was a bad situation. Next thing you know, I'm losing money hand over fist. And I'm like, what am I doing? Now, meanwhile, also, I'm starting to get bored. So I'm going to start a business. So I'm like looking out there, and I'm like, what type of business should I start? And I was talking with a good friend of mine. He was still a good friend to this day. We're kind of running some business ideas over by him. I was thinking about starting a perfume cologne company. I was thinking about starting a cutting board business, selling cutting boards, like really high-end cutting boards, right? Those are a couple of my business ideas. Thinking about starting kind of like basically like a daycare. I had to just call it that. So I had all these different business ideas, and then I had an idea about a real estate marketing company and using a drone to film like nice properties and things like that. My friend, he had a lot of very wealthy friends that had very nice homes. So I said, hey, you mind if some of them would let me film? And two people actually did. They let me film their properties. And so I was able to then use that for marketing out to realtors. I would cold email folks all the time. But since I had a couple nice properties there, and I was able to film it with my drone, this was like new technology this is like 2015, 16. This is like brand new technology, super high quality. People didn't even know drones really existed like that at that particular time unless they were super up on tech. Started getting booked for jobs. And then these people wanted new products that I never even thought of, like community videos. Like, oh, I want to brand myself as like the realtor of this community, so I need you to film this and this and this. And then people started wanting to book me for photo jobs of homes, right? And that I learned was like a much more stable business, because there's only so many luxury homes that need like drone video and stuff like that. There's a lot of realtors that need photos for Zillow. So that became like, although it was a lower dollar amount, it was like a very stable business. So what did I do? I had this little GoPro camera, and I more about money than probably 99% of the population. So I'm like, let me just throw some videos on YouTube. Maybe people can find these helpful. And I create these little videos on like what a checking account is, what a savings account is, what a CD account is, like just, stuff like that, just to kind of educate people on, these different subjects. I had to negotiate a car deal, which was one of my videos that actually started getting some real good views and traction. And then I started a video series back in like 2016, late 2016. It was called 3 Stocks I'm Buying. And those videos did really, really well. And it was clear like people really wanted me to talk even more about stocks than just general finance. Like it was kind of like that's my calling. And my subscriber base grew. My YouTube channel grew. Now we're into 2017 and I'm faced with a tough situation. I had this business and it's doing really well. It's paying the bills. It was my first business I ever started that was a success. But the problem was YouTube views kept picking up and picking up. And so it was a dilemma I had where I'm like, I might be out on a photo job doing, my real estate marketing business, and something happened in the market. And I'm like, I wish I was home to film a video about this right now. And I'm like, people want to hear about this company just reported earnings and I can't cover it because I'm out doing a photo job. So this is another one of those moments in life when you got to question, what do you believe? I might literally be the first person that ever actually had a successful business and dropped the business to focus full-time on YouTube. I'm not kidding about that in terms of like in the money space. No one had done that before. That was crazy. And I did it. And so at the end of 2017, sent all my customers an email and let them know, hey, I'm shutting the business down. I'm going to go focus on this other thing. And it was the best decision. Definitely one of the best decisions I made. And then, just started making crazy money on YouTube, 5 figures a month. And it was like, whoa, like this is wild money. But that comes along with a lot of other things. I had to start to let go of control of things. Started not doing my taxes, which even like that was like a big step for me. Like, wow, I'm not going to handle my own taxes. I'm going to have somebody else do that. You start to have to deal with hate. I mean, you put out videos, and if tens of thousands of people are going to watch those videos, it's just going to be a good amount of them that they hate you. Then I started having some successful investments, and the one that really was insanely successful is Tesla, right? And I was somebody that spoke about Tesla extenstively way before it was a thing to talk about Tesla on YouTube. I mean, we're talking, this was the days of like, it was me and this guy named Galileo at a channel called Hyperchange. And we would make Tesla videos. And obviously Tesla became a huge success, one of the biggest companies in the stock market, right? And so that definitely changed the game for me. Overall, it's been a journey. And the thing is, it didn't just happen overnight. I just took you through the process. It goes all the way back to childhood, right? Learning that work ethic, learning how to take loss, learning about feeling embarrassed by yourself, right? That's the thing in life, man. Not a lot of people understand you've got to take losses to achieve stuff. Coming back to everything to kind of wrap it up, having faith overall, having faith in yourself, having belief, having confidence in yourself, work ethic, being willing to outwork others, the results can speak for themselves, right? You don't have to be the best in the world at something to be extremely successful, right? It all comes back to that work ethic, come back to investing, having that be a focal point. And also it gets you in a good perspective of like income versus expenses, because you start to look at things and you start to say, well, what can actually help me make more money versus what's going to cost me money? What can I put more money into, right, to have that generate me more money, right? The American dream's still alive. You can achieve it. You can do it. It's out there for you, but you always got to put in work. Once again, if you really enjoyed this video, just let me know. Leave me a comment down there. Let me know what you enjoyed with it, or if you enjoyed my content over the years. And starting tomorrow, we'll get back to our regularly scheduled program. Much love. Thanks for being subscribed. Thanks for hitting the like button. Thanks for leaving me a comment, and have a great day.